The courtroom was silent, but there was a strange kind of silence. Not a peaceful silence. It felt heavy. It felt like something big was about to happen. People sat on the wooden benches, waiting and watching the door. Everyone had come here for one reason. Not for the judge. Not for the lawyer. They were waiting for him. The old veteran. The court officer opened the door, and an elderly man stepped inside slowly. His back was straight, even though age had touched him. His hair was white, his face lined with time and sacrifice. But what caught everyone's eye was the Medal of Honor shining on his chest. It glowed like it carried 1,000 stories of bravery. The audience whispered, "Who is he? He looks important. That medal? He must be a hero." The veteran walked without fear. He did not look left or right. He looked forward, like a soldier walking into battle again. At the front, the judge noticed him enter. The judge's face changed, from normal to angry, almost instantly. His jaw tightened. His hands squeezed the wooden desk. He did not like seeing the medal. He did not like seeing this man. The old veteran reached the front and stood tall. He waited. He did not salute. He did not bow. He simply stood proud and calm. The judge finally spoke, but his voice was cold. "State your name for the court." The veteran answered in a quiet but firm voice. "Captain Daniel Hart." When he said his name, a few people in the audience gasped. Some recognized the name. Captain Daniel Hart was not a normal soldier. He was a war legend. He led missions that people still talk about in military history. He saved lives, many lives. But he never bragged. He never told his story. The medal on his chest was the only proof of his greatness. The judge looked annoyed. "You are here because of a legal matter," he said. "This court will not be a place for you to display your decorations." There was a pause. Decorations? Was that what he called the Medal of Honor? Captain Hart didn't respond. He simply looked into the judge's eyes. Calm. Strong. Silent. The judge slammed his hand on the desk. "Remove that medal right now. You do not deserve to wear it in my court." Gasps filled the room. People looked at each other in shock. Even the lawyers were confused. Why would a judge disrespect a war hero like this? Captain Hart slowly breathed in. Then he spoke with dignity. "This medal is not for display, Your Honor. It is for the men who never came home. I wear it for them. I will not remove it." His words carried weight. The audience felt goosebumps. The judge became even angrier. His face turned red. He pointed his finger sharply at the veteran, like he wanted to stab him with it. "I said remove it now." The judge shouted. No one spoke. Everyone just watched. Captain Hart did not move. Behind him, a woman in the crowd wiped a tear. A young man stared with respect. A few soldiers in uniform sat up straight, proud of the veteran. The judge glared at them too. He was losing control of the room. He picked up a paper from his desk and waved it around. "This court has the authority to decide who deserves respect and who does not." Captain Hart replied gently. "No court can change what happened on the battlefield." The judge leaned forward. "You think you are a hero?" he hissed. "You think that medal makes you better than anyone here?" "I think courage speaks for itself," Captain Hart said. The judge slammed his gavel. "Security! If he does not remove that medal in the next 2 minutes, take him out." The guard at the door hesitated. He looked at the medal. He looked at the veteran's strong eyes. His feet did not move. He didn't want to touch a war hero. The judge yelled again, "Do your job!" But the guard still did not move. Instead, something else happened. A man from the crowd stood up. He was tall, wearing a military jacket. On his shoulder was a patch, the same unit emblem Captain Hart once led. Everyone turned to watch him. He saluted Captain Hart, not the judge. The courtroom air changed instantly. Respect filled the room. The soldiers in the audience also stood and saluted. One by one, quiet, strong, powerful. The judge looked nervous now. His hands shook slightly. "This is my court," he shouted. "Sit down, all of you." No one listened. Captain Hart's eyes softened. He did not smile, but his heart felt something. Honor. The judge slammed the gavel again and again, but the sound no longer controlled the room. Boom, boom, boom. The judge pointed again at the veteran. "You will regret this day," Captain Hart answered calmly. "There are many days I regret, Your Honor, but this will not be one of them." For a moment, the judge's eyes filled with fear. It was small but noticeable, like he was afraid of the truth. The man in the military jacket spoke loudly so everyone could hear. "Tell them, Captain. Tell this court who really left the battlefield that night." Suddenly the judge froze. His eyes widened. His face went pale. The room turned silent again, but now, the silence had a new meaning. Everyone now wanted the same thing. The truth. Captain Hart stared at the judge. The judge looked away. Something dark connected them. Something from the past. Something that could destroy the judge. The veteran gently touched his medal. "This is not just a medal," he said softly. "It is a reminder," the judge whispered like a scared man. "Don't say it." But Captain Hart finally spoke. "It is a reminder of the night. You ran away." The judge's body froze. The audience gasped. A storm had begun. The courtroom felt colder now. Every eye was locked on the judge, who suddenly looked much smaller in his big wooden chair. His angry voice was gone. His hands were shaking. Captain Daniel Hart stood tall, silent. But everyone could feel the power of his words still floating in the air. "You ran away." These 3 words hit harder than any weapon. The audience leaned forward. The man in the military jacket walked closer, standing beside Captain Hart. He kept his eyes on the judge like he was staring at a ghost from the past. The judge swallowed, trying to bring back his confidence. I do not know what you are talking about," he said, but his voice was weak. Captain Hart looked at him without blinking. "You remember everything," he said. "You remember that night?" The judge shook his head fast, almost like a frightened child. "Silence! This is my court. I am the one who speaks here." But nobody listened anymore. Even the court reporter stopped typing. The lawyer standing next to Captain Hart finally spoke. "Your Honor," he said calmly. Captain Hart has been silent for many years. He did not want to bring shame on a former soldier. But maybe today is the day the truth must be told. The judge slammed his gavel again, but it sounded powerless. "Enough! This is not about the past. This is a legal case, and the truth is the case," Captain Hart interrupted. People whispered around the room, excitement and fear mixing together. Captain Hart slowly closed his eyes. The courtroom began to fade away in his mind, replaced by memories darker than night. The air felt hotter, like a battlefield. "We were surrounded," Captain Hart started, his voice low and steady. "We were 20 men in foreign land. The enemy had us pinned down. Bullets everywhere." I still remember the sound. It was like the sky was breaking. His hands trembled a little as he spoke, but he continued. "Many soldiers were hurt. They screamed for help. And then," he looked at the judge, "our officer in command told us to retreat." The audience listened like they were watching a movie unfold. "But retreat meant leaving the wounded behind," Captain Hart said. "I refused. Those men were my brothers." The judge closed his eyes, hiding tears or guilt. "No one knew," Captain Hart continued. "I said no. I said we must fight for them. But someone ran before the battle was over. Someone who promised he would protect us. Someone who took the jeep that we needed for escape." The military man standing near him added, "That officer left us to die. Many soldiers didn't make it because he only cared about saving himself." The crowd gasped. The judge looked broken now. He covered his face with his hands. "Please," he whispered. "Stop." Captain Hart looked at the medal on his chest. "I stayed. I brought back every man that still breathed. I carried them under fire. I held their hands when they cried. I fought when there was no hope left." He paused. A deep sadness filled his eyes. "But the ones who died, they died brave. Braver than any man who ever sat on that chair." He stared directly at the judge. "And this medal belongs to them." The audience stood up almost in unison. They admired him, not just for bravery, but for humility. The judge whispered with a shaking voice, "Nobody knew I ran." Captain Hart replied, "I knew. The wounded knew. And those who died, they knew when you left them." The judge wiped his eyes quickly, trying to look strong again. "None of this matters in a court of law," he shouted, but even he did not believe his own words. The lawyer spoke again. "It does matter, because you called him a liar. You said his medal was not deserved. You tried to take honor away from a real hero to protect your own lie." The judge slammed the gavel again, hands trembling. "I did what I had to do to survive." Captain Hart stepped closer. Captain Hart stepped closer. "And so did we. But the difference is, we stayed." The judge stood up in panic. "You do not understand. I was scared. I thought the enemy would kill us all." Captain Hart nodded slowly. "Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what is right even when you are afraid." The courtroom lights flickered for a second. The tension was high, the air thick. The judge looked around like trapped prey. "You can't prove anything," he said. The man in the military jacket smiled slightly. "Oh, we can prove everything," he said. He pulled out a sealed envelope from his pocket and placed it on the lawyer's desk. "These are mission reports. Signed, dated. Your name is there. Everything is written." The judge's face lost all color. His knees almost gave up. "No," he whispered. "You don't know what this will do to me." Captain Hart looked at him with a calm but firm expression. What you did already destroyed many lives. Now the truth will destroy your lies. The judge suddenly shouted like a lunatic. I was the officer in charge. I deserved the credit, not you. I should have received that medal. I should be the hero. But yelling only showed his guilt to everyone. The audience shook their heads in disgust. Just when people thought the drama reached its peak, something even more shocking happened. A woman in the back row stood up. Her voice broke as she spoke. My husband, he was in that mission. He never came back. Captain Hart turned around with solemn respect. She looked at the judge with burning anger. And we thought he died because the mission was impossible. But now I know he died because of you. The judge took a step back, like her words were bullets. Then another person stood, and another, and another. Families of fallen soldiers. Tears filled the room. This court is not here to judge Captain Hart, one man said. This court must judge the coward. The judge tried to run. He actually turned to escape the courtroom, but the guard, who earlier refused to touch the veteran, now stepped in front of the judge and blocked his way. The guard looked at Captain Hart, waiting for his signal. Captain Hart spoke softly. Let the truth stay in this room. The judge was forced back into his seat. His secrets were no longer hidden, and a bigger storm was coming. The sound of a door opening echoed through the room. Someone powerful had arrived. Everyone turned to see who it was, and what they saw made even Captain Hart breathe heavier. The courtroom door swung open with a loud creak. Everyone's attention snapped toward the entrance. Heavy boots stepped inside. A tall figure walked in with slow, firm steps. His uniform was spotless. His medals shined like tiny stars. His face was serious, carved by years of duty and battles more dangerous than nightmares. It was a 4-star general. People in the room gasped. Soldiers stood up to salute him immediately. Even Captain Hart straightened a little, a sign of deep respect. The general looked at Captain Hart first. Their eyes met, and something silent passed between them. Something strong, something full of history. Then the general's eyes moved to the judge. The judge, who once shouted at Captain Hart, now looked like a scared child in front of a strict parent. The general spoke, his voice echoing with power. Judge Robert Kane, he said slowly. It has been a long time. The judge's voice cracked. General Mason, I didn't expect... Quiet, General Mason ordered. Everyone went silent. He walked closer to Captain Hart and saluted him. A full, respectful salute. Captain Daniel Hart, he declared proudly. One of the bravest soldiers this nation has ever known. The audience clapped, many with tears in their eyes. But General Mason wasn't smiling. He turned sharply toward the judge. And you, he said, pointing with authority. One of the biggest cowards I have ever seen wear a uniform. The judge flinched like the words had physically struck him. General Mason continued. You think this courtroom can hide your past? You think a wooden desk can protect you from the truth? Judge Kane tried to speak, but his lips trembled. I did what I... You abandoned them! The general shouted, his voice shaking the room. Everyone froze. No one even breathed. General Mason walked up to the judge, close enough to look him in the eyes. On that night, he said bitterly, you were the commanding officer. They trusted you. They believed in you. But when fire came from all directions, when your soldiers screamed for help, you left them to die. Judge Kane shut his eyes. Tears escaped from the corners. I was scared, he whispered. I didn't want to die. Captain Hart stepped forward. Nobody wants to die, he said. But we protect each other. That is what soldiers do. The general nodded. Exactly. Captain Hart did your job. He saved who he could. He carried wounded men on his own shoulders, while you ran away in the only vehicle. Gasps filled the courtroom again. The judge shook his head rapidly, desperate. No, you don't understand, he cried. Captain Hart's eyes narrowed. Then help us understand, he said calmly. What were you thinking that night? Judge Kane looked down at his hands like he hated what they had done. I just wanted to survive, he said. I wanted to go home. General Mason raised his voice again. And these men didn't? The ones who died out there, were they not someone's sons, husbands, fathers? The judge sobbed loudly, completely broken now. I thought, if I left, maybe someone would come back for them. I told myself someone else would help. But you were the one, Captain Hart responded. You were their leader. The lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, he said firmly. The people in this room now know the truth. Captain Hart did not come here to embarrass you. He came here because you tried to destroy his honor. The judge looked up, confused. But why wait until now? He asked quietly. Why not tell the truth earlier? Captain Hart answered with heavy sadness. Because exposing you would also open old wounds. I wanted peace. I wanted the memories to stay buried. I thought, maybe you lived with the guilt. Maybe that was enough punishment. The judge looked away. But then, Captain Hart continued, you tried to take my Medal of Honor. You tried to make me look like a liar. You dishonored every man who fought beside me. You left me no choice. The judge's hands shook uncontrollably now. His world was collapsing. General Mason opened the envelope brought earlier. He took out photographs. Old, dusty photographs. He held them up for the judge. You remember these? He asked. The judge stared at them. His face fell even deeper in shame. It was him, in uniform, jumping into the jeep alone, leaving his men behind. Clear proof of his cowardice. A woman in the crowd cried, recognizing one of the fallen soldiers in the picture. General Mason slammed the pictures onto the judge's desk. This was supposed to stay confidential, to protect the families from the truth. But you forced the truth out today by attacking a true hero. The judge whispered, my career, my life, it's all ruined. General Mason leaned closer. Captain Hart didn't ruin your life. You did, when you ran that night. The judge covered his face and cried. The courtroom watched silently, knowing justice was finally speaking. Captain Hart then addressed the entire room. I did not want revenge, he said. What happened long ago still hurts. But the truth is not to punish one man. It is to honor the brave men who died because of him. He placed a hand over his medal. I wear this for them, not for myself. The audience clapped again, louder, stronger. The judge looked up weakly. What will happen to me? He asked. General Mason answered coldly. Karma already started its work. The judge's eyes widened in fear. You will face charges, the general continued. You will lose your position. And you will carry this shame forever. The judge collapsed in his chair, defeated. Just as the scene seemed to end, a young man from the back raised a question in a trembling voice. Captain Hart, there is something we still don't know. Everyone turned toward him. Who saved you that night? The young man asked. Captain Hart looked surprised. The general also looked curious. Captain Hart paused, as if searching deep inside his memories. Then he whispered, a shadow, a soldier with no name, someone who appeared out of darkness and covered us, someone who fought like a ghost, and then vanished. The courtroom leaned closer, hearts pounding. General Mason asked, do you know who he was? Captain Hart shook his head slowly, but his eyes held a secret spark. I think he may still be alive. Everyone froze. The suspense suddenly shifted from the judge. Everyone froze. The suspense suddenly shifted from the judge to a mysterious unknown hero. Captain Hart raised his head. And if he is alive, we must find him. For a moment the courtroom stayed silent. Everyone waited, holding their breath. Captain Hart's words had opened a new mystery. A soldier who vanished like a ghost. The judge's crime was now exposed. But the story of that night still had one missing piece. General Mason looked at Captain Hart with curiosity. You think that unknown soldier is still alive? He asked. Captain Hart nodded slowly. I never saw his face, but his courage saved us. He fought harder than any man that day. Without him, none of us would be here. The room filled with whispers again. Who was this mysterious hero? The judge, still shaking, looked up and said sadly, I remember him too. He stayed behind to cover our escape. I thought he died. Captain Hart looked toward the audience. No, a spirit like his does not die so easily. Just then, the courtroom doors opened again. Everyone turned their heads fast. A man entered quietly, walking with a small limp. He wore an old army jacket. His face was weathered, half hidden under a cap. But Captain Hart recognized the walk, the posture, that silence. Captain Hart's eyes widened. It's you, he whispered. General Mason stepped forward in shock. Sergeant Cole? The man finally removed his cap. It was true. The missing soldier, the forgotten hero, had returned. People gasped. Some cried. The judge stared like he was seeing a ghost. Sergeant Cole smiled softly. I survived, he said. But I did not want medals. I did not want glory. I just wanted peace. Captain Hart approached him with grateful tears. You saved us, he said. You saved me. Sergeant Cole shook his head. You saved others more than me, Captain. We fought for the same thing. For our brothers. General Mason saluted both men. "Two heroes," he said proudly. "Both deserving honor." The judge, still broken by guilt, slowly stood. I am sorry," he whispered. "To every soldier I failed. I am sorry." Captain Hart looked at him without anger. "You cannot change the past," he said. "But you can choose the truth now." The judge nodded, tears falling freely. General Mason then announced, "This court will correct history today. Captain Daniel Hart and Sergeant Cole will both be honored for bravery beyond fear." The crowd stood. Applause thundered through the room. Captain Hart took off his Medal of Honor and placed it gently on Sergeant Cole's chest. Sergeant Cole shook his head. "No, that belongs to you." Captain Hart smiled. "It belongs to all of us who never gave up." The two soldiers saluted each other, a gesture stronger than any law or judgment. And with that salute, the courtroom became a place of honor. The truth won. Courage won. Respect won. And the world learned one powerful message. Heroes never ask for medals. Heroes only fight for what is right. The end.